blank is where Republicans will find their spending cuts to pay for the one big beautiful bill.
This is difficult, and I kind of want to give a cop-out answer, but this is also right up your budget alley, and I'm curious to hear what you think, because it's a lot of money, and they have to pull from somewhere, given the tax cuts that the president wants to put forth, on top of all the non-defense discretionary cuts he put forward in his budget blueprint last week. What are you thinking?
Medicaid.
Okay.
Because that's the only silo that's left, right?
Yeah.
So Donald Trump has twice campaigned expressly on his refusal to reform Medicare and Social Security, which, as a reminder, Social Security is due to go insolvent in 8 years, which means a 24% across the board benefit cut. But he doesn't want to reform any of that. What he is open to reforming is Medicaid. So Medicaid, when it was originally passed under LBJ, was supposed to be emergency backstop health care for only the poorest of the poor, children, pregnant women, and then in addition, really poor seniors and the disabled who needed supplementary funding to, the Social Security and Medicare that they're already eligible for. Now the program is for basically everyone. So Obama, thanks Obama, changed the eligibility to basically be almost anyone under the 138% federal poverty line, which means people who are living above the federal poverty line, a significant amount. And then you have individual states that used a lot of the ACA's expansion to, like in California, do healthcare for illegals, and now they're going back to Uncle Sam asking for more money. And also when Medicaid was originally passed, Medicaid was supposed to be a 50-50 partnership between the states and the federal government, and now Medicaid funds the overwhelming majority of this spending. Weirdly enough, the ratio is actually less favorable for the most vulnerable. So the federal government spends less money to support a pregnant woman with preeclampsia than they do for a dude in his 20s that just isn't working. And so the cuts, there are a couple outlandish ideas. We have a Washington Examiner editorial from the commentary desk where we've looked into the math of if Trump wanted to include these gold cards into the bill.
Which they didn't do, for the record.
100,000 gold cards would generate $5 trillion over the decade.
Yeah,
and
that's
you have to
substantial.
Get the total price tag of the bill as being explored is somewhere around the $7 trillion mark. It might be less if the SALT terrorists don't get their way. But barring that, Congress doesn't want to take up the DOGE rescissions. The budget for the discretionary spending is not cutting very much, and where it is, it's like, let's cut NIH and CDC to give money to MAHA to study seed oils and vaccine injuries. You're not getting the mucho dinero you need in order to pay for this.
This is tricky. I mean, cynically, I'm going to push back on you in a little bit. And while I do think Medicaid is the most prime candidate, I'm going to say Republicans aren't going to make these cuts at all, and the fiscal hawks are going to be, thrown off a bus.
I'm so scared you're
and
right.
strong-armed into voting for this, no matter what, because again, it's Donald Trump, and he's not only the best deal maker and can make the best deals with anybody on different sides of an issue. He has all these Republicans in his pocket. And just going back to the numbers for a second, it was around $163 billion, I want to say, in non-defense cuts that the White House proposed. But on top of that, they're proposing raising the defense budget to over $1 trillion. So it's really even, if you take these two components together, it's like a $9 trillion price tag that Republicans are having to come up with.
I included the Pentagon spending proposal in the TCJA.
Okay, so seven trillion.
That includes that figure.
But this is what Republicans have done my entire lifetime in Washington. They've promised to do something, and the two most, or I'll make it three most likely candidates are fix the border situation, which Donald Trump has actually kind of done, but he was right. It didn't require legislation, just some guy being very mean and willing to throw out due process. Number two, repeal the Affordable Care Act. Shout out Obama again. We haven't seen hide nor heel. Is it heel, tail? Again, when I get angry, I can't remember my idioms. We haven't repealed Obamacare. And then the third, of course, is to get spending under control and reduce the deficit and eventually balance the budget. This is the same thing Republicans have been telling people for like 12 years. They're not going to get it done, especially given all the chaos and the terrible math that they have. And again, they're not going to get Democratic votes. And Donald Trump just isn't going to let this die, right? He's going to threaten these Republicans, the Thomas Masseys of the world. I am going to primary you into an early political grave unless you give me what I want. So therefore, I do not think they will make these cuts, even though it would be a rejection of Donald Trump's campaign promise, right? Maybe I'm being too cynical, but I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, so deal with it.
It's not that I don't think that Congress is filled with some, like, characters that don't really have strong spines, but more so that you have to put up or shut up when it comes to the Senate parliamentarian.
Yeah.
You do need to make the math at least somewhat math.
Yeah.
Even if you don't pay for every single dollar of the $7 trillion, you're going to have to prove something substantial.
They're already doing financial gymnastics and talking about how, the extension to the TCJA
is current policy baseline.
Exactly, so it won't raise spending at all.
But even so, the current policy baseline, so that's knocks $4 trillion off the $7 trillion. So then where do the last $3 trillion come from? If you're not going to do the gold cards, if you're not going to do the Doge rescissions, because remember, Elon Musk genuinely did find about $160 billion annually. If you're not going to do any of that, Medicaid we go. So politically, this is not the same lift that, let's say, reforming Social Security would be.
Yeah.